Welcome, everyone, to Modcast VR, Episode 3. I'm Dr. Greg VR, and this is my co-host, VRAN. I got it right? I got it right this time.
You did. Not Fran.
Not Fran. Not Fran. It's VRAN. All right. And we're really excited today for our guest host. We have with us our good friend and friend of the show, the one and only Beardo Benjo. Welcome, Ben.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks.
You didn't call me Beardo Benjo.
I didn't call you Beardo Benjo.
You could have got that wrong as well.
I could have. I heard somebody in my stream the other day said Beardo Bumhole.
I don't know. That's VRified. He's pushing for this Beardo Bumhole thing, and I'm terrified. I don't know what it means for the future. I'm not rebranding. I'm not doing the OnlyFans yet.
I started laughing so hard when he said that.
I don't know where it came from. I've had Bredo.
That came from your wife.
That came from my wife. I've had Banjo and now Bumhole. So yeah, it's the slow evolution of me in the VR space.
Oh my God! I need to make a new picture for your thumbnail.
Don't make Bumhole one.
Yeah, don't.
No one wants to see that. I promise you now.
That would be hilarious. No. Beardo Bubble.
April 1st next year, maybe I'll record that.
Yeah, there you go. They have like
Only then.
They'd have like a fart afterwards.
To cap it off.
Beardo Bumhole. Oh, what a great start.
What a wonderful start.
All right. So today we are going to be doing something a little bit different here. We're going to start out. Somebody had brought this up. I can't remember the name, and I feel bad about that. On the Discord, that we should be doing a little bit of a. Oh shoot! I'm kind of crying a little bit here from that laughter. We should be doing a little bit of a VR. Yeah, a VR mod news. Segment. So that's what we're going to do. There's been a lot of VR mod news that's come out since the last episode, and it's only 2 weeks ago. So we've got that. And today we also have, now we have an interview with Luke Ross. Don't get excited. He's not actually going to be on the show. I talked to him a little bit, and he is adamant about not having his face or his voice online, and we completely respect that. I thought of some ideas. I thought, well, I could just have a little avatar like Twinkie Hitler in a video. He could do the answers for him, but he probably wouldn't dig that. And I did run by him, maybe doing like a TTS type thing, but he said, yeah, that would sound a little bit too much like was like the Stephen Hawking? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not really up for that. So what we're going to do instead is we got Beardo Benjo to join us, and we are going to just read the interview. We'll put a link in the description to the full text interview if you want to go through all of it, because he did some really extensive answers for us, and it was great. Some really exciting news in there too. For some people might know a little bit of it already, but we kind of pushed just to make sure that we were getting the right info from him. So, all right. So. Let's get started here with the VR mod news, or flat to VR mod news even. Oh, and another thing I want to bring up, in case you don't know, and a lot of people do because it's got a ton of followers already, but Elliot Tate started a flat to VR Twitter, and we'll put that in the description as well. So make sure you follow that, and of course follow. Modcast VR, because that's kind
obviously.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Oh, look at that! Look at that fancy shirt that Fran's got there. Isn't that nice?
Ooh.
We have a merch store.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, we have an American and a UK one, and obviously the UK one is much more efficient.
You guys are coming up in the world.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
it's a professional operation.
That's right. Well, I don't know how professional it is, but I can't even get my co-host name right.
You'll get
it's
it one.
Fran. I mean, Vran.
Vran. I don't know. All right, let's talk about some news here. This one's pretty cool. So now it's not so much mod news, but it does affect mods, especially for owners of the Quest 2. You can use side quests inside the Quest 2 now, which is finally, I mean, I don't know how many of you have done this, but if you want to play things like Dr. Beef's great mods like Doom 3 or Wolfenstein or Half-Life, you've got to go through this pain in the ass process of hooking your Quest up to your computer, and it's kind of there's kind of a barrier there for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I don't even have any of those installed on my new Quest 2 yet because it's just such a pain in the butt. So this is a great thing. So yeah, you'll be able to just do it all from right inside your Quest. Do you have all those still on your Quest, or have you deleted them off, Ben?
I still have all of them on there. I think Half-Life's still there, or Lambda. Doom 3, I don't think I would ever remove because I stand by it being probably like one of the best Quest 2 games. Full stop. Like,
yeah.
I think it's one of the best things you can play if you've got a Quest 2, especially if you have haptics as well.
Oh yeah.
And I do love the side quest integration onto the Quest, but it still hasn't fully eradicated that specific barrier because for Doom and that, you'd still need to get the WAD files from your PC.
From your PC. That's true. I didn't think about that. Well, I guess
One
I'll just start
day-
doing it now. Screw it.
One day there'll be a way to kind of all we really need. The Steam Deck actually has this app called, I can't remember what it's called, Winpinator, and it's kind of like an airdrop app for the Steam Deck. If the Quest had that, where you'd have one app on the Quest and one app on your PC, and you just airdrop things. I know it doesn't solve the problem, but that for me would just be, I just hate plugging a cable in.
I know.
I'm so lazy.
I know. Yeah, we're
If
so
I can airdrop
spoiled.
something, there must be a solution out there that will allow you to airdrop something from your PC to your Quest, and that would eradicate it completely. But yeah, no, the Dr. Beef ports are essential.
They are.
For any Quest owner. Essential.
Yeah.
Besides Resident Evil 4, the Doom 3 is the only game I'd play on the Quest 2, to be honest. I just, because I just don't use my Quest 2. But that, I actually enjoyed Doom 3 better on the Quest 2 than I did on the PC. And, I just thought I thought it felt better.
I'm not sure what it was about it,
Yeah.
but I played what was it called on PC? It had a different name. The mod had a specific name. I can't remember what it was, but I played the PC VR mod.
Totally
And I
Possessed or
liked
something
it.
like that?
That was it. Yeah, it was the fully possessed.
Fully Possessed. There you go.
And I liked it. I thought it was good on PC. But yeah, playing it on the Quest, it just felt like a kind of a natural fit. It felt like
did.
a native Quest game. It kind of
did.
Yeah.
there's
Beautiful.
something about it. It just fit. It just really really good. I love
Yeah.
Dr. Beef. I just love.
Yep. There's somebody else we need to get on the show sometime. I know he's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rand, you playing any of those games on the Quest or not? Because I know you have a Quest 2.
1.
The Half-Life.
1. Yes, I do. Half-Life 1, as soon as I realized that Dr. Beef has released one, like a mod for it, it was on the Quest, not the Quest 2. I had it on the Santa Cruz, because I have the Santa Cruz version, like the before
Nice.
it even became, And I was like, oh, because you need it. I was like, if I travel, if I want to show people, I need this there and never take it off. Half-Life 1. So that mostly, and Doom, and I have all of those. They don't go away. They stay. That's why I always get the bigger Quest, not the 64 gigs. I need the 128.
Well, I don't think you can get the 64 anymore.
I think they've killed it off.
Yeah, it's
haven't they?
128 now.
Yeah.
That's the smallest one because that was the refurbished one I got after I bricked mine. Actually, I bricked mine trying to get haptics on it for Doom 3. I downloaded the B haptics like player or whatever onto my Quest 2, and something happened where it wanted me to put a lock pattern on. And I was like, okay, and I did. Well, a few days later, I go to, well, actually, it was a couple months later because I never touched my Quest. I could have put it on, and I was like, oh shit, I can't open this. I have a lock pattern, and I didn't remember what it was. And they gave you several options you could do. None of them worked. I tried to do all of them. None of them worked. And I went back and forth with Oculus. They were actually really good at getting back to me with tech support and everything. And we went through all of the options. And pretty soon I get, we're RMAing your Quest. So I completely bricked it with a lock pattern.
That's amazing.
Wow.
All right, more mod news. Now I haven't played a ton of this game. I just actually did the tutorial last weekend, but Deep Rock Galactic got a massive update. So they did things like, and this is from I think it's Hair Punished Fristy, I believe is the name of the modder there.
It's
I
all
don't.
on you.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry, sir, if I am. But anyway, that's what I got off of Discord. But apparently, there's a problem with character spinning when you're trying to switch characters.
Oh.
There's something going on. Disabled interaction with the HUD laser and the player. UI menus are now closer to the player for better readability, which I think is good because
Nice.
when I played it, it was pretty tough to read.
You couldn't see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Prevents shooting from when dead or frozen. Now I haven't played any multiplayer with that, like I said, just so I don't know what that means really. Menus always face the player, which is nice. So I'm assuming that people's menus were like somewhere off in the distance or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like holster height depends on and there's a whole bunch of other things, but a big thing with it that it looks like it actually supports Vive trackers now for any of you that might actually have Vive trackers. I've never really delved into the tracker thing. Have you, Ben? Bran?
It's not ever really appealed to me. I'm a less friction is better kind of guy. I just want to be able to throw something on and play, and I've always found Vive trackers to be the height of friction. Setting up, wrapping some, put some on my legs, put one on my neck. Why not? Just stick them everywhere. And I think the experience you can have is super cool, but for me, it's too much hassle. Too much setup for the reward that I'm going to get at the end. I don't think we're there yet. I want a suit I can just put on the zip up and go, I'm in, tracked, brilliant, done.
Yeah, tracked,
that's me. That's what I want.
Tracked and haptics with it. That would be perfect. And we're getting there.
We're getting there.
But yeah, I see some of the things that people, I think maybe Thrill was doing something where he's like, I did a Ready Player One thing, and I looked at all of that shit, and I'm like,
so much shit.
That's just so much shit.
Just covered head to toe in shit. And he's in
the thing, in the treadmill,
VR things. We're just not there yet.
No, it's like,
just not there
screw
yet.
that, man.
Too much.
Yeah. All right, we got
for me it's even too much because I don't have my Rift S here with me yet. When we're going back to Canada for a visit, I'll bring it over. For me, it's even to set up the Quest 2 with Link or with AirLink and then test something and then take it off. That alone takes too long. Rift S, we just put it on, it's already working. Yeah. So to talk about trackers,
trackers just seem like a pain to me. And plus, they're
Have
expensive.
They're
like what, $130 a piece?
Yeah. I look at people who have got kind of like 8 of the things. I'm like, gee, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Do you know if the I don't think it's on this update. I don't think it's been implemented. Do you know if Deep Rock Galactic has the physical pickaxe swinging yet? Do we know if that's been implemented? That was the one thing that I was kind of really keen.
I was swinging. I was when I played it.
I was swinging.
Yep. Yeah.
The last time I played it was a button press, and the devs did say it's a super easy thing to implement, but one specific person working on the project wanted to do it, and he was off.
Oh no!
So they were like, we're not touching it because he wants to do it when he's back.
Yeah.
So
No.
I assume it's in there now.
Yeah. By last weekend it was, and this was before this update apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
Valheim update 0.9.2 from Moose, I believe. Fixes bow and arrow animation. I haven't played Valheim ever, not flat or VR. So yeah, I don't know much about it. And it says,
time sink.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It's probably one of the reasons I haven't played it. It says updated Unity engine version now initializes all. And I don't know what it actually is because I realized my iPad autocorrected to X-ray logic. I don't think that's what it is.
It might be.
I'm not sure. There's some kind of logic, So
X-ray logic.
Pretty sure it's not going to give you radioactive gamma rays.
Who knows?
Here's one. Now I played a little bit of this. Was it this weekend? And oh my God, I can't wait for this to be beefed up more. I actually talked to the developer a little bit. His name is Kem, Kem. It's Left 4 Dead 2, the VR mod. I got to say, guys, I mean, after playing that game, because I'd never played it before, I really, So I was not into PC gaming until like 2015 or whenever I got my setup for my Vive. I never played PC games, and I didn't have it on console because I didn't do a whole lot of that either at that point. But after playing that, I really, really understand now what, Vertigo is going after with After the Fall.
100%.
I don't. There's something that just isn't there for me for After the Fall compared, because I mean, when I played Left 4 Dead 2, just the little bit that I played, oh my god, it is so good. I put like the high res texture pack in and everything.
Yeah.
The intensity of that game is
Yeah.
insane.
That's the difference. I mean, I bought Left 4 Dead when it came out for 360 back in the day, the first one back in the day, and at that time I lived with 3 other dudes, and we ran LAN cables throughout. We lived in this 3-story house, and we ran LAN cables to each room, and we played Left 4 Dead every night, and we were obsessed. And then the second one, a similar thing. I played it through with a buddy, and we did it on the hardest difficulty, and we were playing it for months. So I've got kind of like a deep love for that game, and I do see what Vertigo were trying to do, with After the Fall. But Left 4 Dead is far more frenetic and far more unpredictable.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but they built a system for Left 4 Dead whereby there's an AI that governs how the game plays, and it kind of oversees everything you're doing. So if you're doing particularly well, this AI can go, okay, it's time, and it throws a horde at you, or it scales back the amount of weapons you might get, or heals. And it's constantly kind of procedural almost.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that's just missing from After the Fall. You play After the Fall, and the enemies are where the enemies are, and you might get, there's a few more here.
Yeah, they might come from one different crack over here, but it's just not the same. It's not the same.
It's not that feeling of Left. It's very intense, and the VR port, I think, is, even in its early state, is really bloody good.
It's so fun.
What I did do is apply a mod to remove the hands.
Remove the arms. That's one of the things. Because I asked him about that. I asked him about that because I was like, "Because are you gonna?" He's working on decoupling the hands, but that's what he said. Right now, he's like, "But for now, you could just use the no hands mod from the workshop, and that takes care of that problem." Wormslayer sent me some presentations that Valve had done on like the zombie variation and everything. They're fantastic. They're huge, but it just goes through how they all worked. There's something like, I think, like 25,000 variations of zombies. And like the way that it works and the way it worked on all the meshes and everything with wounds and it's amazing for what Valve did back in the day. I mean, things like Half-Life 2 in this game, it's just was blowing everybody out of the park, and it still stands up.
Yeah.
It does.
Oh yeah.
Another thing that there's a new starter guide now by, I love this guy's name, Ryle Kittenhouse.
Oh, house filled with kittens.
Yes. I'm pretty sure that's a play on Kyle Rittenhouse, the infamous,
Oh god.
It's still funny. But anyway, so because that one and I think Deep Rock Galactic both are not, if you had like a tier, a leveling of ease of installing mods, like Luke Ross and Prey Dog would be like, ones as easy. And these guys would be probably about a 6 or 7 because there's a lot of stuff you've got to do.
There's a bit of tinkering involved.
Yeah. He's working, but Kyle Rittenhouse, or Ryle Kittenhouse, sorry, get that name right, set up a guide that makes it a little bit easier. Also with that one, you can play it. I don't know if when you were playing, Ben, if it was this way, but you can play multiplayer now.
I haven't dived into multiplayer yet, but I've seen rumblings in the Discord that it is possible.
Yes, there is a as long as the host has the mod, and then there's this string in the setup. There's this string of things you put into your launch options on Steam, insecure launch option type stuff. And what that does is it keeps you from getting banned by Valve.
I don't want to get banned.
No, yeah, exactly. So it just bypasses the anti-cheat. So that's cool. So yeah, I definitely want to try that with multiplayer. I think that'd be a blast. There's no room scale at the moment, which can cause some issues. I was having those issues where I was like, I'm in the middle of a hall, a zombie hits me, and all of a sudden I'm through the wall and I'm looking into all the polygons and everything. So that's why, and then you'd get stuck on like what seemed to be like little things on the floor. You couldn't get over them, or stuck indoors. It's because you're not centered. So if you're having that problem, just back out with your left controller and recenter your headset, and then you'll be fine. So, all right. Let's see. What's the other ones? Risk of Rain 2 came out with version 2.8.0 by Dr. Is it Bibbop or Bybop, or I'm not sure, Bebop?
Bebop, I guess.
It's like, I would expect it to be two E's and not an I. So I'm gonna say Bybop. But anyway, not a whole lot there that I could see, except for it's got like alternate skin support. Updated VR API, I don't know what that is for modders, to add custom skins, and Enforcer mod, it says, will soon add full VR support. So, if I haven't played that game yet either. I've heard it's amazing.
Me neither.
It's great.
Yeah. I think I watched you play it, or one of them.
It was a while back. I think it was when the mod first dropped. I did a video.
Was it 2 or was it 1?
2.
Okay.
1 is a very different game. One's like a kind of a side-scrolly 2D type thing. The jump 2 was like transformational for Risk of Rain. Completely different concept. But that VR mod works brilliantly. It's another one that's great multiplayer. If you've never played it, it's kind of got that. I don't want to compare it to Left 4 Dead, but it kind of has that frantic feel. You can quite quickly get overwhelmed, especially when the bosses turn up and then all the other enemies start pouring in, and you're just running around screaming.
That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, Risk of Rain's brilliant. It's a VR mod I actually haven't played as much as I probably should have done. Just talking about it now is making me think like, okay, I need to sort that out. I need to play some more. It's a very good VR mod. It's a very good VR mod.
Sweet. That's definitely one that. Okay, and then for our last thing I have on for news, Monster Hunter Rise, and this is just today. This just popped up today. Monster Hunter Rise has a new expansion, Sunbreak, I believe is what it's called. And Prey Dog's already on that. He's already got a file out, initial update, he says. And this is really, really cool. It includes DLSS support.
Ooh,
so, cool. And apparently, and this is what really excites me, this is according to Elliot Tate, maybe getting Resident Evil mods, maybe getting the DSL or DLSS too, which would be so nice.
Game changer.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know if either of you guys noticed this. I did. I just felt like, especially maybe in 8, especially. And 7, really, DLSS would have been nice, because I did notice that I was getting a little bit of eye strain. As good as it looked, I think the frame rates are down low enough that it would help to have that little boost from DLSS. But
it's a weird one, man. It seems like it's different for everyone. So 7 for me was perfection. I streamed the whole thing in like 2 days over one weekend, no issues. The frames felt solid. I watched the stream back and I was like, looks good.
Yeah.
Perfect. 2 was a nightmare for me. Like the first half of 2, great. I didn't really have any issues, and then the second half, I don't know what happened. It just fell apart.
I remember watching the stream on that. Yeah.
Oh, dude,
that was a nightmare stream.
I was changing headsets. I was running fast for the first bit, and the frames were so low, and the capture was even worse. The stream was kind of like 4 frames a second, and it was tough.
Yeah, it was a slideshow.
And then I switched over to Rift S. And it kind of sorted itself after a while, but there was still some teething issues. And I've spoken to other people, and some people have said 3 and 8 are the easiest to run. 7 and 2 are really hard to run. And I'm like, but 7 was fine for me. And I've heard other people say that Village is hard to run. And I think they're games that you really do need to dig into, again, the settings, and make sure you're getting the graphical options and the stuff inside the game absolutely spot on to whatever rig you're running, because just throwing VR on top is so demanding.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd done enough for 2, but I clearly hadn't done enough for the second half of 2.
Yeah, no, 2 ran perfectly for me the whole time. I never had any issues. It was beautiful. It was smooth. 7, I don't really remember having much issue with, but 8, I seem to remember it was giving me a little bit of eye strain. But to be fair, I didn't really do anything with my settings on 8. I just played it with the standard that Praydog, set everything up pre whatever, and yeah, so that was probably on me more than anything. But anyway, the thought of having DLSS on there is great. So yeah, that's it. That's really all I did. You guys have anything new news wise for mods that you know of?
Raft is getting a VR mod.
Oh yeah. That was I saw that.
I think it's from the creator of the Risk of Rain mod. I think.
believe so. Yeah, and then there's another one that's something about a spaceship where you
Shipbreaker.
Yeah, that you build it. You build
Yeah.
Hard Space
saw it today.
Shipbreaker, I think it's called.
Something like that. I don't remember exactly.
You're
on
like
that
a scavenger in space. You have to pull apart old decommissioned spaceships and sell the parts.
Yeah, and it's got full support, like motion control and everything. It looks like. Yeah.
I think that's being. I'm going to get these wrong. I think that VR mod's being made by the same chap who did the. I want to say the Firewatch mod, but I could be wrong.
I think you're right. Rocky Parda, is that Rocky Parda? I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I think it was that chap. But I know he'd also hinted at. I assume he had hinted at doing a Stanley Parable.
Okay.
VR mod. There was a little bit of gameplay floating around on YouTube of a kind of an early concept for a Stanley Parable mod.
He's working on that one. Yeah.
There's just VR mods everywhere.
I know.
Coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And not strictly a mod, but currently the beta for Devour is running. It might have already finished by the time this episode goes up, but yeah, the Devour is terrifying. Even flat screen that game
just because you put it out.
Yes.
So we got to jump into that maybe this weekend.
100%. Well, we need to because we've only got like 3 days to get a look in.
Oh wow, yeah.
Because the beta finishes on the 4th.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it this weekend.
Let's do it.
It'll be fun.
What about Fallout London DLC?
Yeah, that's out now too.
That will work with Fallout 4?
Yeah,
Fallout
it's on Fallout 4.
VR.
God.
And it's like a full people that made that mod even got hired by Bethesda, I believe, because of their work with that mod.
I didn't know that was out. That's exciting.
Yeah, and that's like it's like a DLC sized. It's massive. So,
and it's London.
Yeah,
it's London, innit?
My only experience with London in a game was was it The Getaway? From the PS1.
It's kind of like GTA. It was like a GTA knockoff, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I remember I couldn't understand anything that they were saying because it was all like really heavy Cockney and they were like using all the slang. They even had like a guide for the slang words. And I was like, I don't know I don't know what they're saying.
Gonna go up the apples and pears and use dog and bone and all this stuff. Yeah. Brilliant. Gonna get a Ruby Murray for dinner.
Oh my gosh. All right. So this is going to be interesting. So hopefully this works all right on a podcast, but we're just going to go over the questions that I asked Luke. And that Brand sent me a couple questions too, and I gave Benjo a chance to ask questions, and he was like, "You've already asked them," so that's the way I think I'm hogging the questions. But anyway, first question I asked Luke was how long he'd been modding games, and if they'd always been VR mods. Now his answer was not so long actually. My first stab a full game mod was in 2017. It was a conversion of the flat screen to Oculus Rift CV1. He really loved the headset. Even more than the hardware itself, loved the pioneering spirit that came with it. Everything seemed possible those days. I was the original one of the original Oculus Kickstarter backers. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, he's only been doing this. Think about how many mods this guy has kicked out in, just the last 6 months.
I mean, I'm sure it will probably come up as we progress progress this and talk about his answers, but I speak to Luke quite a bit. We go back and forth on email once or twice a week a lot of the time, and we've got quite a good relationship going now, and I think that answer is very much him.
Yeah.
I mean, from everything I say to him, it's not about... I really respect his choice to stay out of the public eye, for one, kind of not have his persona online, because it's a choice. I mean, putting yourself out there and being online is a big thing. But he's not doing it to be famous, or to be a persona, or to be somebody that has like an online presence. He's doing it because he wants VR to succeed. He's doing it because he wants VR to grow and to get the
Yeah.
exposure it deserves. And I remember we had a really interesting back and forth conversation about what games he should do next, and should he focus on some of the newer games because they do tend to get the exposure of bigger outlets. When he did Elden Ring and Cyberpunk, they were picked up by like PC Gamer and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's huge exposure for VR. And then there's that conversation about kind of, but not everyone can run those games.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe do some old ones and then some new ones. So, but no,
Yeah,
that answer there is very much. He just loves VR.
Yeah, he does. I
Yeah.
I chat back and forth with him quite a bit too. Luke is really good about getting back to people. If you like on his
Oh, yeah.
Patreon, I usually just message him on his Patreon, and So you could tell that he's always very 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 complimentary of our show and everything. He loves what we're doing, and yeah, he's always just like, thank you for evangelizing VR and that type of thing. So yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And he's
a
doing
great guy
doing really
for-
well too. What's he got, like at least almost 3,000 Patreons?
I think last time I checked, he was nearly 3,000 Patreons.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
crazy.
Great.
It's crazy.
It just shows that the hunger for these kind of big, expansive experiences in VR.
Absolutely.
People
Yeah.
want things that are longer than 2 hours, and
Exactly.
not necessarily
And
just a quest. Experiments.
Exactly.
There's still too many experiments.
Yeah.
I don't want to derail the
Agreed.
conversation here, but there
No,
are
no.
still
Agree,
too many
I agree.
experiments.
No, but
No,
it's
that's
part of
very
it,
true.
because I think that a lot of people think and feel the same way. So derailing is sometimes good because it
Yeah.
brings up the subjects that people are.
Well,
Thank you.
today I stumped for something to do for a video because I deleted the footage that I was going to use for
I read
today's
that.
video, like a complete fool. I went back to one of my staples, a game that I kind of always jump back into in VR, which is Hitman 3. And people really hated on Hitman 3 because it wasn't particularly well polished or optimized. But you know what it is? It's a game. It's a full-length game that has incredible replayability. And although the price point on Steam is a mess and you have to buy about 1,000 different things to get
million
the whole
things,
thing,
right? Yeah.
it's abysmal. I got it on Game Pass, so I didn't pay for it. I just get everything, and it's like the best VR game that's come out this year in terms of something that keeps me coming back. And I've got so much value out of it, but everyone hated it, and I find that really interesting. This kickback that we had from Hitman 3, but I would rather devs took a stab at it and gave us something like that than shied away and didn't do anything at all.
Yeah, well, and the problem is when you got it, we've talked about this on episode 1 too. Something like Hitman 3, instantly gets a ton of hate from the VR community. What do you think that does to the developers thinking about jumping into VR?
Well, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, it's like, wow, they really appreciated that, didn't they?
That wasn't worth it.
I mean, I didn't really like it. I haven't played it on PC. I didn't like it on the PlayStation at all. I didn't like the weird controls. I didn't like the way it worked. But
Yeah, I don't think the PC necessarily fixes that issue completely, but it goes a hell of a long way to fixing that issue. Just giving you two separate
two hands
hands
is nice. Yeah,
is a huge deal. Even though one of them
doesn't do anything.
doesn't do anything, it's nice to have that hand. It just kind of floats there. You can wave at people as you run around, which is nice. But it's as someone who still plays a huge amount of flat screen games, and I think I am a bizarre anomaly within the VR community because I see so much outpouring of, I don't do that anymore, I just do VR. I do think I'm a bit of a weird anomaly in that regard. But because I still play a lot of them, I kind of understand the reasons why a lot of Hitman 3 VR is how it is. Because for them to kind of give us the VR game we want would have to fundamentally change the core game of Hitman 3. In Hitman 3, when you play it flat screen, you can't stop in the middle of a ladder and pull a gun out and start shooting someone behind you, but us VR gamers want to be able to do things like that because we feel like we should be. So it would mean making a separate game rather than a game that can be switched between VR and flat on the fly. So I really respect that it's there. And I think we need more of that. And we need to embrace that. And, call out things that aren't necessarily great, but the dogpiling that Hitman 3 got when it came out was just crazy.
Well, you also have to remember that a lot of people that are going to play those games, that might be their first VR game. and they're not going to know any different. And to them, it's going to be freaking amazing. So,
Yeah, it's true.
I can strangle someone in VR. This is
yeah,
amazing.
that was fun. I did enjoy that part. Just getting in their ear and whispering it to them as it killed them. Shh, it's okay, it's okay. All right. Then I asked him, if not answered above, what was the first game you've modded in VR? And he said it was a game that nowadays many people remember, or not many people remember. But I'm sorry, Luke, I'm going to butcher your answers. You should have just come on and answered. It's like, but in this time, it was a true gem. No One Lives Forever. A spy in HARM, or Harm's Way. It's all, it's a acronym type thing.
Yeah.
I'll probably just type these up and put them up on screen, by the way, for anybody, so you can just read them. And that way you can see how bad I'm butchering his answers.
Do you want me to read? I don't mind reading.
You go ahead and read. I hate reading online.
I love reading. It was one of the very first. Oh my God, I can't read. One of the very few first-person shooters featuring a female protagonist, beautifully written by the genius mind of Craig Hubbard. I'm talking about the same brilliant designer who gave us Fear, First Encounter Assault Recon. Incidentally, my mods are called Real VR, with REAL standing for Reality Enhancement Augmentation Layer. I didn't know that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, isn't that great?
As a playful homage to Craig's work and the amazing universes he created. That's brilliant. The VR mod is still working, and it can be freely downloaded from a GitHub link. I'm sure that'll be in the description.
It will.
But the hardest part might actually be getting your hands on the game itself, because sadly it's in distribution rights hell, and no digital store has been able to sell it for many years.
Oh, that's sad. Because I'd love to.
I checked, couldn't find it.
Really?
Have you ever played it, Ben? Because you played everything.
I've not played it.
We found a game Ben hasn't played.
When you see the picture of the game, you will, oh shit, I've seen it before, but you can't find it anywhere.
Huh. No One Lives Forever. That's like a James Bond title, isn't it?
James Bond, yeah.
Yeah, I've never. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the protagonist looks super familiar.
Yeah, that's the way I was thinking. First thing I saw it, I was like, well, I'm sure I can find it. You can't download it. You can.
I hate it when that happens.
That's my mission now. I'm going to try and find it.
Okay, what they need to do then is just change the name a little bit and then sell it.
I'm going into the dark web tonight. I'm gonna find a copy.
Oh yeah, in the dark web.
I'm gonna go to the dark web.
Change your voice as well. Go for it.
Okay, to question number 3. What was one of the biggest hurdles you've had to jump to get these games into VR? And I'll let Ben. He did a nice job. I like listening to him speak.
Oh, thank you. There are many aspects of modding games for VR that can be both challenging and tiresome. Perhaps one of the most frustrating issues is when the game is fighting you every step of the way. With obfuscation, anti-debugger techniques, and anti-cheat protections, it's extra annoying when the launcher insists that you are forbidden from running the game you bought unless every single file matches the, perhaps obsolete, version that it wants. Cough, Rockstar, cough. To make an example, Red Dead Redemption 2 features DLSS, which NVIDIA implements as a library that can and should be updated frequently. 15 new versions of the DLSS library have been published by NVIDIA since RDR2 added DLSS, and you cannot install any of them on the game because Rockstar Launcher won't allow you to play. I mean, it's fine to demand that everything should be as the developers expect, as long as you're playing online, but you don't want cheaters to ruin the game experience for everybody. But it's absolutely not fine, in my book at least, to shove updates down people's throats when they're playing their games offline in single-player mode.
I agree with this so much.
Yeah.
God, I hate that when they change something, and especially if you're in the middle of the game and all of a sudden you can't play it.
Dude, it actually
like Dying Light for you, Greg.
Yeah, Dying Light.
That was the mystery update. We don't even know what happened there.
I don't know.
Some back-end Oculus nonsense that
it was either Oculus or it was Dying Light, because Dying Light updated like the same week too. So it might have been that. Yeah. Now there is a way you can go. I forgot about this. I want to try this out. There's something called Steam Depot. It's a program you can use. You can go back into the database of Steam and download versions of the game before they update.
A previous version.
So I want to try that and see if that fixes that Dying Light problem, because I really want to finish that game. I was so bummed when
you started getting into the groove with it, and you started being really good at
Yeah, and I
playing it.
finally figured out I had like bow and arrows and weapons I could craft. I played so
Yeah.
much of that game with just melee.
You get into the good bit then, basically.
Yeah,
You get into the
Yeah,
good
he
stuff.
did.
Oh yeah, I had
He did.
the arrows. I was having so much fun just hitting them with or even the people with those exploding arrows where they just go flying.
Yeah.
I do completely feel, and that Luke's answer like completely resonates with me. What he's saying
Yeah.
there about publishers and developers need to kind of get their hands in and play around with even games that you play single player offline. I worked in a game store when Sim City launched, the first one that had to be online at all times. It was the DRM stuff, and even if you played it single player, it needed that online connection. I remember the immediate pushback from gamers. I think it was the first example in kind of a big mainstream game that kind of had this. Yeah, you can play it single player, but you've got to be online at all times. And everyone was like, "Excuse me, what?"
Uh-huh.
And it's still something that doesn't sit right with me. And I do understand they're trying to combat piracy and things like that, but it's like my PC. Like, this is my PC. If Windows trying to enforce some kind of change on this PC that I don't like, I should be able to say, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Just the other day, an update came down for Windows 10 that enforced me to increase the amount of characters that my passcode has. And I was like, well, I don't want to. But I had no choice. It just made me do
Yeah.
it. So I hate that kind of, once I have a piece of tech or a game, just leave me alone. Like, just let me play it the way I want to play it and do the things I want to do with it. It's a single player experience. You don't need to be forcing me to download these updates.
There was a
It
period.
gets my goat.
Yeah, there's a period probably about, oh gosh, maybe 2 or 3 years ago where every time Windows did this automatic update, it would completely mess up my audio settings. I wasn't getting recordings right. Mics weren't working that were working before, and I'd have to go and mess with everything. God, it was such a pain in the butt. Resident Evil just did that. It was the backlash on that was so bad they had to upload a beta version that would take you back to DX11.
It's a great example, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
killed the mods.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people couldn't even play the games anymore because they didn't have DX12 or they didn't, have PCs that were good enough to run all that crap. So
Yeah.
It's fine if I'm sure the intentions are good in those instances. Like, oh, we want to give you a better product. It's got 4K and ray tracing now and all this stuff, but it's a complete oversight into that everyone's setups aren't the same. Everyone's situation isn't the same. There's people who have spent years. Imagine if they released a new update for like Skyrim tomorrow that absolutely killed the mods. People would lose their minds.
Oh my God! Yeah.
The amount of the curation that's gone into making that experience exactly right for certain people. If they all of a sudden went, "This is now the version that you must play, and your mods don't work."
Yeah, that would be
Don't
bad.
Skyrim. Don't give them ideas.
Oh, you said it now.
You said it. Well, it's not.
Well, it's
edited yet.
Bethesda. They don't work on games.
Bleep it
afterwards.
out. Bleep
Yeah.
Blur my mouth. Bleep it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope Luke mods. Speaking of Bethesda, Starfield right away when that comes out.
Starfield.
'Cause he will
Immediately.
That'll
Day
be
one.
day one. Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. No, I bet you within a month of that game launching, though, he has something going.
Someone will have something.
Yeah.
The rate this is growing, someone will do something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
Same for Spider-Man.
Yeah. So I don't play the Spider-Man games. I know that makes me a bad gamer, but
Makes you a bad person.
dude, I got when I got my PS4 Pro, it's actually red and it has the spider on it from the Spider-Man. It was like the special
remember that one.
edition. Yeah. And the only reason I got that was because it was the only PS4 Pro that was available. But that game came with it, and I sat and I played it for I don't know, not very long. I was like, I just don't like this. I didn't like there's just too many buttons, and it was just like it's just confusing me. I was like, I'm just button mashing here. I
love it.
That's a boomer gamer for you, right? It's like
Yeah,
too
I
many
love that.
buttons. I need like the old man button thing, It's just like one big button.
That's like a yellow.
And it's got
picture
it's got to have a title button on it in big letters so I can read it.
Here it is.
Oh, God.
Okay, question number 4. I've noticed I get a mod update when I play Cyberpunk, but from Patreon, but I usually see that the changes were made for a newer game. So what I'm basically talking about there is a lot of times when I jump into like Cyberpunk, it'll say up at the top of my screen it's loaded. Well, your mod is outdated. To update to version blah 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 blah. But then when I go to the Patreon page, it's actually for updates that were made for Elden Ring. So what I was curious about when I asked this question was, is basically that mod, it's one mod with just a bunch of games that it works for, or if it was a separate mod for each game. So I'll let you read the answer.
So, yes, at the moment you only get one mod, or to be more precise, one installation package that supports all my Patreon games, namely Red Dead 2, Mafia, Definitive Edition, Mafia 2, Mafia 3, Horizon Zero Dawn, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, and Dark Souls Remastered. The installer, which I call Real Config, takes care of customizing the mod, the game settings, and any additional files that each specific game needs. This arrangement might change in the future as the list of modded titles grows longer, but for now it's easier for everybody to just know that the latest package is the one you want. Of course, I don't ever force people to update, and whenever I add a new feature or change anything in the mod, I always put an option in place that users can toggle back to the old behavior. I'd actually always wondered about this, and it's kind of cool to have it confirmed, because I'd always thought, like, is it to me, I always looked at him and went, it's just one mod, right? Because he would send me the new version for something, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
it's just real. Name. It's just the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, is this specifically for Dark Souls, or is it just one mod? And that's amazing. It's just kind of one overarching thing that you just apply.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I like that, you can't go back.
It's amazing.
There are a couple changes he made. Even I have the latest version installed now just because I do it with all the games. But a couple of the changes he made to the Cyberpunk mod, I remember, that weren't exactly my favorite thing in the world. One of the things he changed is when you're looking at people, like with your scanner, and there's like menus that comes up and everything, he changed it so that if you tilt your head, it'll bring the menu to the center so you could see it. But that is super sensitive, and there might be a way to adjust that.
Even the smallest bit of your
head. So sometimes you're like leaning around a corner and you scan somebody, and then it comes over, and then it won't pick up the person to highlight them. And so you got to do this with your head. And another change that I mean, it's neat as a gimmick and all that, but I don't think it was necessary in the game, is he made the map 3D. So instead of having the map in front of you where you can just look and see all the menus and everything and all of the stuff on it, you can't see any of that now. It's out of your field of vision because the map is 3D. It made it all bigger. And I personally, I would rather be able to read all of the information that's on it.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
In a game like that, I just don't think that was a necessary change.
Yeah.
And another thing, I like the character creation. He made that 3D. Which is, it's okay, but personally, I think it looked better when it was 2D. I mean, the graphics were a lot crisper and everything, So that's just my 2 cents. I spent a insane amount of time in that game, so I know it's not one of your absolute favorite open world games, Ben, but
I think it's I think it's a lot better these days than it was, when it launched. And the bulk of the time I spent with it was at launch. So I have this very specific opinion kind of ingrained into me, and I would find it difficult to rewrite that now. I'd have to just throw myself back into it now wholeheartedly and just kind of really give it another shot. But at launch, it wasn't. It wasn't the game that you've played recently, and having picked it up again fairly recently, I still think it's a long way away from what they promised. I was one of the little hype boys that was like following every trailer they did, being like, this is going to be the best thing ever. And then it fell really far short of kind of the game that they set out or were telling us that was being created for one reason or another. And I think it was kind of higher up studio interference, and it has to reach this release date and I do feel bad for people making it. But I was kind of promised this world where, there were flying cars and there was loads of
side quest. You can do that now with a mod.
With a mod, though.
The mod.
Well, games like that, modders always save them. Look at Skyrim. So Skyrim wouldn't be the game it is 100%. Without modders.
This is true. 100%. But yeah, I think it's a better thing now with the VR mod for sure. I think the game's come a long way. But yeah, I think there'll still be a lot of people like me who are just kind of scarred from that launch window impression. It's going to be hard to shake, especially
because
sad
for me, because I just love it.
Honestly,
I think so much.
I think you did the best thing, just not touching it there, hype is a monster. Don't get hyped for anything. Just play games with no expectations, and you'll have a great time. I'm slowly learning that. I've been burnt many times, so yeah, slowly learning.
Yeah. Hopefully, CD Projekt Red learned a lesson too, as far as the hype goes, because so much money was spent
So much money
just on advertising,
just on Keanu Reeves.
Oh my God! I was impressed in that game how much I expected him to just not be in the game at all. I mean, it's like a little thing. He's with you the whole damn game.
He's constantly. He doesn't shut up.
Yeah. And you actually do. It's pretty cool. You do actually start to develop this relationship with him. I really enjoyed him being there. He made me laugh a lot, and it's just
the story content is solid.
Yeah.
I can't really knock that. The actual story, the emotional beats, the relationships you build with the characters, I can't knock that. It was very, very good. I was just disappointed with the world building itself.
Yeah, when you start getting into like going and doing all the fixer gigs and everything, the last couple weeks that I've been playing, that's all I'm doing. I'm just going and doing gigs because they're so much fun. I hope we get a lot more of them with their expansions because.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've got tons of enemies. And you've got all these different objectives to do to get through them, And I've been working on the ninja, and so I like kill a couple people, save because I don't ever want them to catch me. So I'm doing the limitless thing all the time.
Limitless, pulling a limitless.
All right, question number 5. Has there been a game or games that you have wanted to mod for VR but could not?
Not yet. Some have been tough nuts to crack. For instance, implementing a first-person camera in Elden Ring was a challenge, and one that perhaps I haven't fully conquered. I would probably agree with that. But I haven't yet met a game that can resist my steamroller. Amazing. More seriously, the games that really cannot be ported to VR successfully are those that don't draw the full world in 3D.
Yeah.
To make an example, I have long been a fan of the Siberia series by the late Benoit Sokal. But as much as I would love turning those adventures into VR experiences, it can't be done because most of the environments are just 2D painted canvases with holes that your 3D character can traverse. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
very interesting.
That kind of that reminds me of like Resident Evil 4 on the Quest, where now you have all of these things they had to completely rebuild. Like, before, like in the 2D version, like those chandeliers were just a 2D thing, but then they had to rebuild them all 3D, that type of thing. So, yeah, imagine trying to port the original Resident Evil into VR. That wouldn't work.
Wouldn't work. Wouldn't work.
Uh-oh, Brian, I thought we wouldn't have a problem with your light beam. And
I know. So hold on. There's just
he's got like a Ziggy Stardust thing going on.
Yeah, yeah. He's
like
got a
line right down his
right.
Look at that.
in slow motion. Hold on.
I love it. It's amazing.
I tattooed that portrait on a guy once on his calf. How's your tat doing, by the way?
Good. Yeah, it's can't really get it. It's an awkward thing but it's really, really crisp. She does amazing work.
Was that a pokey one of the pokey things?
All dot poke. Yeah, it's all hand poke. It takes a long time, but it's 7 hours. 7 hours. But all it's done is what it always does when I get a new tattoo is I come away and I'm like, right, I need another one now.
Yeah, yeah.
The addiction.
When I got my upper sleeve done right here, it was an 8.5 hour sit, and the last part of it that he was doing was this through my armpit shading, and by then my pain tolerance was completely shot.
Gone, I bet, yeah.
And I was just shaking, and I was like grabbing the top of the table and just doing Lamaze like.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I remember getting to my car and my hands were just shaking. I had to drive home. I felt drunk and it
takes it out of you, man. It leaves you in a kind of an almost state of shock. Like your body's in shock because you've just been stabbed and wounded for 8 hours.
Exactly.
Your body's in recovery. The
longest sit I ever did personally with a client tattooed this big dragon on her back, and she sat there for 10 hours. And it took 4 hours just to do the lining, and we got done, and I was like, are you sure you want to keep going, because we've got a long ways to go with all the color and shading you want in here. And she's like, oh no, I want it all done, because she lived in Colorado, which is like she lived like 7 hours away. I was like, okay.
Bless.
Oh my God. That was, I don't know who is harder on, her or me.
Make it stop.
Wow. But is that the addiction, that pain, or that?
No.
No, it's the reward. It's certainly like you look at it at the end and you love
You're
the
like,
thing.
oh my
and you're
God,
like,
look at this.
Mhm.
just love it.
I've changed my
Yeah.
body permanently. It's
I've
wonderful.
augmented myself. It is a feeling of like. And the first few days, I was sitting here last night playing a game, just and then I looked down my arm like, oh, because you forget that it's there and it's kind of a little bit weird. But yeah, seeing the finished result that's the addiction. Looking at it, going,
Yeah.
I love how that looks, and they've realised what was in my head so perfectly, and then you want more because you
Yeah.
have more ideas.
Wow.
You'll always have
So
more ideas.
You align it. You align what you have in your head and what it looks like, and it's aligned, and it's like, ding.
It's
Time
a
for
little light
another
bulb
one.
goes off. Time for another one.
Yeah.
This is, I'm always going to have more ideas.
Yeah.
You'll have to come to America, and I'll just come there. I'll come visit you guys. I'll bring all my stuff, and we'll just have a tattoo party at Benjo's house.
Oh, that sounds great. A tattoo party. Let's do it.
That's right. Cock and balls for everybody.
That's what I've always wanted.
Okay, question number 6.
Most of the VR people are here, anyways.
That's
in the
right.
UK.
True.
That's true.
Now you're the only one who is in North America.
I
so
know.
just
I'm like
get
all
over
by
here.
myself. Well, Biggity's here. He's just like maybe 4 or 5 hours away from me down in Oklahoma. So, I could still like the guy even though he's from Oklahoma.
Yeah, it makes it harder, but you
It does.
can get.
It
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Question number 6. Could you explain to us the process of modding these games? I was hoping we'd get.
Oh God. Ha. This might get very boring quickly.
I don't
There are
think
many
so.
steps, and each of them can take me anywhere from a couple of hours to a couple of days to complete, depending on how the game and the engine work, on how far from a VR way of thinking the developer's mindset was when they wrote the code, and also sheer luck. Since I don't have the source code to any of the games apart from my very first mod, the one we spoke about previously,
Yes.
where the game source had been made publicly available by Monolith Productions, I might stumble right away on the correct point where I can hook the game to find what I need, or it might elude me for days and require dozens of experiments and failed attempts. I won't even try to make a list of steps involved here because it would take up so much time in your podcast and would probably be too technical for most people to enjoy. However, if you feel there's a specific interest in this, we might return to the matter and expand on it in a future episode.
See, I love that. This is why I love this guy.
Yeah.
That's why what's so interesting about Luke's mods is that, and what some people might not realize, because I've showcased all his mods on the channel, and I always get the same comments. I always get people saying things like, "Oh, it's got no motion controls. I don't want it. I hate it. It's not VR." Blah blah blah, and that kind of stuff. And I respect that mindset. I know people feel like they need motion controls, etc. And I love motion controls as much as the next person.
They're always better. Always.
It's always better,
Yeah.
But I'll take any experience I can get, and I do like a casual seated experience with a controller. I just do. It's not even a guilty pleasure. I think it's a very valid way to consume VR, and I think
It is totally
important in the future of VR's growth. We have
very
to appeal
important. Yeah.
to everyone, and so many casual gamers aren't going to be interested in VR because they don't want to stand there and flap their arms around for 4 hours. They want to sit and play with the controller. But I think that's really interesting that he's kind of said that, because I don't think a lot of people realize he doesn't have access to source code.
Yeah,
He's not
that's
digging into these and like picking them apart and rewrite. He's doing this without that, and that's
incredible.
kind of mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's able to hook this kind of framework to these games without having any of the internal source code.
Yeah.
Yeah, because look at like even like the last episode where we talked about Half-Life 2 so much. They needed a lot from Valve in order to get this done. So I don't know if Prey Dog had source code. I doubt it for Resident Evil games.
I read something about that fairly recently. I feel like I don't want to misquote, but I think I read something in the Discord about how they had something. They had kind of a bit of a way in, so it wasn't like an entire source code laid out in front of them, but they had something they could work with. But I can't remember the exact quotation.
Yeah.
But I think they had a little bit more, and that was what were able to kind of, once they had that, it was kind of a door, and they could get in and start building, and that's why we got the amazing stuff like actually being able to knife the zombies and stuff that I thought that mod would never have.
Oh, I know. What he did with that was so far beyond what I ever expected. I seriously just thought we would be sitting there playing with a gamepad, and I was perfectly okay with that, because that's, I mean, majority of the games I play anymore that's the way I play them, because
now we're all just sitting here now thinking, Okay, so we're getting some Village DLC at some point. So that's another VR thing that in theory we'll be able to play.
Yeah.
And Resi 4 next year will probably still be RE engine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and there's the thing with the Village update, the DLC. I'm sure that'll be VR on the PSVR 2.
it will be, yeah. There'll be the PSVR 2 as well, yeah.
So as far as Resident Evil 7 goes, the PC version with Prey Dog's mod is 100% the definitive
It's
way.
the best version.
Definitive
Yeah.
way to play that game.
Yep.
I have a feeling Village, however, when it gets the native treatment from Capcom with those controllers on the PSVR 2, is probably that's going to be better.
The haptic controllers, the haptic face stuff,
Yeah.
plus dual wielding.
Yeah. The only thing, the only thing I worry about in that game, and I hope they don't do this. I hope they don't force us into cinema mode with the cutscenes,
Same.
because they are so good in VR. I mean, when Lady D picks you up and you're flying up over the castle, that's just, oh my, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Or, flying over that lake when that fish comes up out of the water at you, and so good. Or even when the sisters, the sisters, I love the sisters so much. when they're dragging you on the floor, I mean,
I love it.
if they're worried that people aren't going to be able to handle that, then give them the option to do that, so they can
turn it on and off.
Yeah. But let us VR hardcore guys, let us have our fun too.
Yeah. Tie it into the comfort settings for sure. I hope. Yeah.
Okay, question number 7.
7.
I've read on your Patreon and have seen on Ben's chat. Shout out to Ben, he's right there. That you are looking into modding Bioshock. Is this something that you are currently working on or coming in the near future? And if so, will you be doing Bioshock 2 and Infinite as well?
God, we've all really been going at him with this one, haven't we?
Oh, we have.
As I was saying, it's very hard to tell when because there are so many variables, but I already started looking at some of the first game, remastered version, of course, and sooner or later a conversion might come out of it. Winky face emoji. Depending on the reaction from my Patreons, I might also look into the other installments. Infinite in particular would be the final test for everybody's VR legs with its frantic skyline combat.
It would be awesome.
He would be making my dreams come true.
Oh, it'd be so
if he did that.
good. I mean, Bioshock is... Yeah, it's a game I haven't played very much of it. Bioshock I played maybe about an hour or so, I think, through the first chapter of it. And then because I was playing it with Vorpex, which worked great with Vorpex, with the 3D scan and everything. It felt like a native VR game, except for the fact that the scale is all messed up. So,
Scale's wrong.
You got tiny people, tiny big daddies. Objects are small. Your hands are like the size of this big, big hands. It kind of messes up the game. And then every time every time you went through a chapter, you'd have to redo your 3D scan, which isn't that big of a deal, except it was that it started crashing on me and it wasn't working right. So then I just gave up playing it. But I really want to play the game because it looked absolutely beautiful, and having it in fully realized VR, that would be great.
I bought it on launch and I played it for like 2 hours and I was like, this game's garbage, and I hated it. And like 6 months or something later, a friend of mine or a few friends were like, oh yeah, Bioshock, game of the year for me. And I was like, what are you all talking about? It was rubbish. And they were like, go back and play it. And I did, and I sat down, and I don't know what was wrong with me the first time I played it. It was one of them instances where something just didn't click. But I played through it, and yeah, it's still now one of my favorite games of all time. I've played through the first one on PC, on Xbox, on Switch. Every chance I get to play that game again, I play it. 2 is probably my least favorite of the 3. But again, it's still a great game. And Infinite, I adore Infinite. They're brilliant games.
Yeah, I have all 3 of those games, and I've done the same thing with each one of them. I've played them like an hour.
Played a bit. Session.
Yeah, and then never went back to them. One of the reasons for me, once again, is that I had them on console. I freaking hate aiming with the right thumbstick. I hate it so much. And I was so bad at it, and it was just like I didn't want to bother with it anymore.
Yeah.
You need the head, eh?
I need the head
You
aim.
just need the head.
Yeah, that gaze aim is awesome, man. I love that. Like in Red Dead Redemption 2, just picking people off with a rifle, it's just so cool.
I see so much hate for gaze aim. Again, that's another thing I see a lot in my comments. People
I
just
love
saying,
gaze aim.
I hate aiming with the head, and I'm like, dude, it feels really natural
It
after you've done it for a
does.
bit.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Bang, bang. I really
It's
like
great.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, if I had guns like attached to my shoulders in real life, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Like before played with Vorpex, I would just played with the gamepad, and then I built a profile for Metro, and then it had the head tracking, and it was perfect. And I was like, will that cause a problem? Oh man, that's the best thing to have a head aim, especially in Metro when you have all those creatures coming at you.
Not Metro
flying from everywhere.
2033 though. That's garbage in Vortex.
No, it was Last
At least it
Light
was for me.
or-
Last Light, the second one I think was Last Light. Yeah.
It was amazing, beautiful game.
I'll have to try
Gorgeous,
that one because
graphically.
Metro 2033 did not work for crap for me in Vortex. I had so many problems with that game. It was a nightmare. All right, question number 8. People often complain that if a game doesn't use motion controls, then it isn't VR. We've touched on this. All of us here at Modcast VR disagree, of course, but I'm curious if you have ever thought of adding motion control support to your mod.
I actually don't do it by choice, and it is my perhaps somewhat radical opinion that the pressure to implement full motion controls everywhere is one of the largest factors which is holding back VR from becoming mainstream in AAA and indie games alike. I discussed my position in a public post here, put a link in the description, I'm sure. Also, recently I was asked about it during an interview for Mixed, a German news outlet focusing on VR and AR, and this was my reply. Feel free to edit out for brevity. So Mixed said, why do you think big companies don't port their games by themselves?
Yeah, we don't have to
Luke?
go through all of Mixed stuff.
Oh
I
my
don't
god, yes,
think.
it's a whole big thing
It's a
here.
huge article. Yeah, I didn't even
it's
realize
huge.
that.
Oh god, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me see if I can kind of pick through. I think.
But I think we know the gist of it. What he had said basically is that forcing people to use motion controls in VR just to be a VR game means that all these big companies that are making these games have to implement a whole new way to interact in the game, and it would just not be practical, really.
Yeah,
Probably not cost effective. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of skimming through what he's saying here, and it's a lot of what we've touched on.
Yeah.
He does delve into a little bit more detail about some certain factors, but I've always felt it in my heart of hearts that it's hard to sell VR to the casual gaming mainstream because, much like the Wii, they don't want that almost gimmicky feeling. Yeah. They don't want that gimmicky aspect. And don't get me wrong, I think if you actually got somebody into one of the better kind of action set piece sequences of something like Half-Life Alyx and gave them motion controls and let them feel what it's like to slam the clip in and cock the gun and take cover, I think that would sell them. But that's never going to be anyone's first experience, and it's not the norm. You know, Alyx is the exception to the rule right now. It isn't the rule.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we need more experiences that, you know, if I could invite a friend over, sit them in this chair, give them an Xbox controller that they're already comfortable with, bang a headset on their head, and they can play Dark Souls in first person, in VR, with a controller, they're going to enjoy that experience more than me trying to rifle through a lot of the VR games that have motion, like native motion controls, and find a bit that really kind of showcases why it's so cool to be able to do all this stuff, especially to someone who's unfamiliar to it.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of comfort that just gamers in general, whether you game on a Switch or an Xbox or whatever you game on, there's an element of just what's normal, what's comfortable is sitting with a controller and unwinding at the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
And VR needs a piece of that pie. It needs to be.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's what we've
part.
been doing since the Atari. The 2600.
Exactly.
I mean,
It's
we
like
had a controller.
Our hands are totally like this.
Yeah.
It's like
Except for
that's
the
way
Atari,
my
it was
hands
like
feel
this, and you
comfortable.
got like carpal
Yes.
tunnel syndrome in this
With
hand
that
from
red
holding
button.
down that big red button on it.
with a red button.
All about choice. It's all about choice, and I do think that, you know, motion controls is never going anywhere, and I love it. I love motion controls in the game because for me it does immerse me like crazy. But I also love sitting with a controller. I think having the choice to, that would be the perfect scenario. Is if we can get to the point where something like Alex comes out and it says, right, do you want to play motion controls today, or are you playing with a pad? And you'd be like, oh, I'm a bit lazy today, I'm playing with a pad. Boom, and and it wouldn't necessarily work for something like Alex because it's built around that.
Yeah,
But in a dream fantasy world, having that option would be great because I think it would appeal to so many more people. And it helps VR to grow, and that's what we want. We want VR to grow.
You remember after Alex came out and that guy was modding it for 2D? And like the hand sat on the screen and he'd just push a button and they'd shoot out in front. It's like
it's like litter pickers, those things you pull the trigger and the thing goes out and grabs them and comes back.
Yeah, like Poppy's Playhouse.
Poppy's Playtime, yeah.
Whatever it is, yeah. That one needs a VR mod.
100%.
Okay, number 9. Elliot has said that graphical artifacts and ghosting around character models in Cyberpunk 2077 is due to computer performance. So if we had say a 4090, would that solve that issue? Is there another workaround? Not that it bothers me that much. I still play the game almost every day. That was just my little quotation thingy, but
like the hypothetical 4090 that you
hey, it's coming. It's coming soon, I bet. As soon as I get something in the 30 series, it'll be released.
Same here. There are 2 different factors involved. The shimmering halos around near objects and NPCs come from incorrect TAA, temporal anti-aliasing. Basically, TAA needs accurate motion vectors for every object in the scene together with all the graphics buffer data from the previous frames to work its magic. And since developers usually don't think about stereo rendering, after a VR conversion, the motion vectors will often refer to the wrong eye. That is not really important for distant objects as the image in the 2 eyes is essentially identical, but the so-called disparity is much larger for those close models, and it will make TAA fail to find a match. The second factor is a ghosting or duplication of the object borders, which only happens when your frame rate is too low and objects are in fast lateral motion. It's an illusion that the brain creates because the headset flashes the same image 2 or 3 times, depending on the ratio between game frame rate and headset refresh. Being only a perpetual artifact, it's impossible to capture on video, even shooting through the headset lenses, and most people quickly learn to unsee it after just a few minutes of gameplay. This factor is the one that will automatically get better with future cards, and in fact you can already verify that statement with my latest Dark Souls Remastered mod, 100%. DSR is a very well written PC port that performs amazingly on modern hardware, which means it shows no AER ghosting whatsoever. Yeah. I remember I streamed Cyberpunk, and in the live chat I had people going, what's the ghosting like? What's the shimmer like? And I'm running around, and I'm moving my head around, and I'm sprinting, and I'm like, I don't really see any. Like, I don't really see any. Because I'm so used to playing Luke's mods at that point. I'd done GTA, I'd done Red Dead, I'd done Cyberpunk. I'd become used to what they look like. And then he sent me Dead Space. Not Dead Space, sorry. I wish he sent me Dead Space.
Yeah, I wish.
He sent me Dark Souls.
What did you reveal? What did you just reveal?
Yeah, that's it. You open a can of worms now.
Beardo Benjo video tomorrow. We'll reveal all.
Yeah.
I wish.
Or you go on a Patreon and Luke has blocked you.
Yeah, he's cancelled my subscription. I'm done now. He sent me Dark Souls. And the second I started playing it, I was like, oh, I could feel the difference because it's so well optimized. And I mean, Dark Souls on my PC, I'm hundreds of frames per second. It's so easy to achieve that.
Wow.
And
nice.
That means that in the headset, it's because you need to kind of you get like half in the headset, isn't it? You need to like double it.
Yeah.
So if you want that 120, you've got to be running at like 240 on your PC, but then you've got 120 in the headset. And immediately it felt different. And that's when I went back to Luke and I was like, have you considered doing more older games? Because this runs so well.
Yeah.
And it feels great in the headset. It's buttery smooth. It feels like a native product. That's an exciting point. And it's a point of contention because I know he wants to focus on a lot of maybe the newer games because they get the better exposure.
Exactly.
Which makes sense. But I do think there's value in focusing on the older games because the result is so good. And if you gave that to someone for the first time, they're like, whoa. Whereas if you give someone Cyberpunk for the first time, they might be like,
Yeah, what's this
There's a,
going on here? What's this?
there's a little
Yeah.
bit of kind of you have to accept some things. You have to accept some kind of quirks, I think. And we're used to that. So we're like, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool that I can just do this.
Yeah, especially with DLSS on Cyberpunk, I don't even notice it anymore. But I do remember, because there's just like a little, it's like, especially around the hair and stuff, there's this extra stuff going on around the fringes. And when people walk by, especially in your peripheral vision, you see it's like tracers of people, it's like, but what's crazy to me about that is you can't see it on screen. You can't see it through the headset. It's just an optical illusion. It's
nuts.
Your
brain.
It's so weird.
It's like Yanni and Laurel. Did you have that? Yanni and Laurel? It's exactly that.
Where
you
hear it. Some people hear Lonnie. Some people hear Laurel.
But if you think about the other, you can hear the other one. I think.
Yeah,
I could hear both at some point, but it's just the fact that how am I going to convince you that I'm seeing a shimmering? I see, and you don't see it on the screen, but I can see it. It's amazing that science comes into gaming.
Yeah, this is crazy.
I mean, in depth 3D with reshade, you can see it. Once you extend the 3D, even in Vortex, you extend it, then you will see that duplicate of the character or that shimmering or that aura. But
I remember, I remember with Vortex, and I don't think there was ever like a term for it, but I remember there was certain games in Vortex that I would play that you couldn't get 3D to hook.
Yeah.
But like they would almost look 3D. Like your brain kind of does this. You understand the depth. You understand where things sit within that world and that space. As long as the scale is right, your brain kind of tricks you into thinking it's kind of a 3D space.
You said something about that with Dead Island. I remember on one of your videos you talked about that, I believe.
It's kind of like this illusion of it. It's not there, but you're like, it feels like it is.
Yeah.
But if it was there, you would immediately be like, oh, no, it is now. But like, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yep.
Amazing.
Okay, question number 10. I know Beardo Benjo has mentioned Dead Space. Is that one you've considered at all, or would you wait until the remake launches?
As a general rule, yes. I usually wait for an already announced remake to come out before I attempt a mod. It takes me so much time to fully mod a game, at least a month on average, that it makes no sense to invest all that effort on a game that's going to get a complete overhaul soon. A month for a whole
month. It takes so long.
Baffles me that he's hanging these out once a month.
Half-Life 2, it's been 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
1 month.
Yeah.
1 month, yeah.
Well, I remember when he did that with Cyberpunk. I mean, Cyberpunk came out and he was like, no, it wasn't when it came out. But I do remember when he first announced it, that he was thinking about it. It's like, oh, it'll probably only take me a month to do. And he was right about there. It's more like maybe 6 weeks, but
yeah,
it's
crazy.
Yeah. So I was wondering about that too, as far as Dead Space goes. I mean, that would be great in VR. I'd absolutely love it. But since there's a remake coming out, it's supposed to be bigger and badder and all that. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be amazing. I figured he'd probably just wait for the remake. But like you said,
but then there's that question, isn't it? It's like, how's that going to run?
How's it going to run? Yeah.
I mean, if that's going to really push people's hardware, I mean, are we going to get 90 frames on screen here? So that's going to give us 45 in the headset.
Yeah.
Or do we do old Dead Space, which I could easily do like 250 frames, and we have like this crazy solid. That's the toss-up. That's the interesting thing, because Dead Space Remake gets a VR mod the month it comes out. Yeah, PC Gamer are going to report on that.
Oh yeah.
The big outlets are going to report on
that. For sure.
Yeah.
That's exposure for VR. That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
But how's it going to run for the mass majority of people that want to try it? So it's that toss-up between getting the exposure and giving an experience that's good for the vast majority, because I think that's what you need to hit. I think the vast majority need to have a great experience, not just the people like us with high tolerance to quirks and weirdness, because it's the vast majority that are going to run and tell their friends, oh, you can play this and then they sub to his Patreon, and then they buy a headset, and then VR.
VR.
Yeah. Striking that balance.
Yeah. So then that brought me to, are there some big games coming up you're planning on modding? Callisto Protocol, and then in little quotation or parentheses I put, this is a question about Callisto Protocol.
That's because there's no answer to this question. It just says lol.
Oh, did he?
There's no answer there.
Oh no, there is because then he went to 12. I did
There
both.
is, like-
It's like where could people send you requests for games? So he did this.
He's
he put,
combined these
combined
two.
them. Yeah, where could people send you requests for games they would like to see modded? So there you go.
I'll take these two questions
There you
together,
go.
man. You wouldn't believe the number of requests I get each day for so many different games. Some tend to pop up more often than others, but I'd say not a single day goes by without some new title being added to the list. Many of which I've never even heard about before. They come from all channels, private messages, or public comments on my Patreon posts, chats, YouTube comments, Reddit, you name it. Just today, I got Callisto Protocol from you, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, Thief 2 The Metal Age. I wish I could do every game in the world, but unfortunately, that's not possible. Yeah, I think he's going to be seeing a lot of the same ones. I would assume Bioshock's quite high on the list. And he did do a poll on his Patreon a while back, and you could vote on ones that you were kind of more keen on.
Mm-hmm.
And the results were published, and I can't remember what came out on top, but there was a lot of games that held kind of 20% of the vote, and there was a few that were kind of really, really hotly contested. I think Bioshock was one of them.
Yeah.
Far Cry, I think one of the Far Cry games was quite high, and Assassin's Creed as well, I think. Came quite high.
I remember that actually. I remember that poll actually. Yeah.
I've never played Assassin's Creed.
I
know,
think
man.
they've had their day. I think they're still going, but I think that the best ones are maybe behind them. Would be my not so controversial opinion on the matter.
Yeah, this is some of those games I just that's the fun thing about doing a channel now for me, especially with all these new mods coming out, because a lot of these games are being modded I've never played before, even if they're older games. So for me, they're new experiences, and I think that's more fun for viewers too. Just when people don't know what's coming up,
you're playing them blind. You're kind of experiencing it new and fresh. Yeah, for sure.
All right, number 13. This might be Vran's question. Is this your question, Vran?
Maybe.
I think it is.
Yes, I think it is. Want me to read it?
Yes, you read it, please.
You modders nowadays really save VR in many users' opinions. Do you think or believe that this is the real future of VR, converting loved AAA titles from the past and or new released flat into a VR gem?
I actually hope that the interest from modders and users alike can be enough to reverse the negative trend from developers, publishers, who otherwise seem to have mostly decided that PC VR is a huge loss, and the only profitable thing is pumping out mobile-like titles for standalones. I mean, nothing against that. It's certainly a growing and fascinating market, but I'd hate for VR to become this small thing where the wonder of open-world AAA games is forever out of reach.
Yep.
Very succinct. Spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we started this podcast. Because
exactly,
Vran and I, that's all we've played for a good solid year is modded games or games in Vorpex, or with 3D reshade was Vran does a lot of that. Yeah,
because you guys are hungry for full games.
Yeah, we've been doing
long games.
Yeah, we've been doing VR for a long time, and when we started, there were all of the. I remember when VR, when I think it was like 15 or 16 when I first got the Vive or all that. We had games coming out, and they weren't really super long, but I mean, even games like Vanishing Realms, and remember the Gallery, the Call of the Starseed,
Starseed,
yeah. Wilson's Heart comes to mind. We had so many like real games, and then as it went on, then we started seeing games like Alex, and oh my God, my cat is going to be a pain here for just a second. We was like Alex and here, buddy.
Say hi to the game.
This is Peep. He's my buddy.
Hi, sweetie.
We love cats here.
But yeah, we had Alex and Walking Dead Saints and Sinners and Boneworks, and it was like, oh my God, VR is like getting some freaking games. And then the Quest 2 came out. And that was right, like towards the end of, was it a Trip VR podcast, Ben? And I remember us sitting there talking about, look at what's happening to our games.
The cultural reset, the reset button was the Quest 2.
Yeah, it really was. And
just yeah.
And so I'm glad that it's happened because it has brought a lot of people into VR. But I think even those people, a lot of them are going to start wanting, like we are now, wanting full game experiences.
You
Yeah.
can feel it, and like candidly speaking, as somebody who makes a lot of Quest 2 content, I've felt the cultural shift on YouTube, not in just myself in terms of the content I want to make, because you'll probably notice if you've seen anything on my channel recently, I've made a lot more videos about mods and me mucking around with mods and me experimenting with things, and haven't made as many videos about the native Quest things, and that's reflected in the viewers as well. Before I would put out a Quest 2 video, and it would perform because people are like, "Oh, new Quest game." Everyone would watch that. And I'd put out a PC VR mod, and people would be like, "It's flipped."
Yeah.
You put out a PC VR mod video now, people are like, "Oh, that's a full experience that I can actually play. It's like a proper game," and they get excited for it. You put out the Quest 2 video, and it's like, all right.
Yeah, dude, I'm seeing that in my streaming numbers too. I mean, I'm getting some amazing numbers playing these modded games on streams.
Mm-hmm.
And
People want to see
Definitely.
proper games in VR.
yeah,
Full games.
Yeah.
And that we will, those games will come to the Quest again. But this is very similar to last year. That they don't really they don't know how to space out the releases. We go through this kind of weird 8-month lull of strange experimental games, and there's a few gems in there. Like Last Clockwinder, I absolutely loved. I thought that was super unique, wonderful little game. But a lot of the other games have been kind of I pick them up, I play them, and I go, "This is fun," and I'm done within like an hour and a half. And I don't really have any reason to revisit it. And then when it hits kind of October, they just start dropping out all their big hitters, and they come out within kind of a 2-month window, and it's like, where were these for the rest of the year? I know that's the Christmas period, and it's where the money is, but if you spread these out a bit, because people start to get fed up, and they start to not. The Quest gathers dust, and you don't want that. You need to keep people excited.
That's right. I really feel like
100%.
the PSVR 2 is going to help that situation a lot. That's my hope. Because
March 2023, I'm calling it. I think March 2023.
yeah, I think you're probably right. And the good thing there is the games that we're going to be getting, more than likely, we're going to be getting a lot of like top quality PCVR quality games on that, and it's going to be great.
It is.
The fact that people are going to be able to play, has it been confirmed? Is Alex going to be on the PSVR 2? Has that been confirmed or not? Or
No, I think it's just a rumor at this point.
Okay.
I'm kind of in the camp of I'd be shocked if it didn't go there.
I would be
Just
too, but
Making that available to more people just makes sense to me, but we'll see.
I'm not to bring up Population 1, but I'm hoping that gets on the PSVR 2 because that would bring in a massive player base.
The player base.
Yeah, and that's what that game needs.
All of these multiplayer games need to be on as many platforms as physically possible.
Absolutely, because like in Pop 1, they've changed up this last big update. Has kind of a ranked system in it. And
I saw that, yeah.
My squad mates and I have noticed that we're having a lot more fun since that's happened. It's not like we're getting in there and just getting absolutely obliterated by these god tier level squeakers that. Yeah. But yeah, that has nothing to do with Luke Ross. Number 14. That's also a Vran question.
14.
I'll let you read it, Vran.
Do you get approached by game developers in awe that you actually manage to do and convert their products to something else? Maybe offended a bit that players enjoy their games more in VR than they did in flat screen.
Interesting. Actually, I don't, and it weirds me out a bit. Not that I'm famous or anything like that, but I would have expected at least one developer or artist from any of the games I modded to come out and say, "Hey, I enjoyed seeing our game in VR for the first time."
Yeah.
Or, "Dude, that really sucks. You totally ruined the thing." Instead, complete silence. I'm actually not sure how to interpret that. Is there total apathy and lack of interest from people in the gaming business about VR? Are they afraid of contacting me due to punishing clauses in their contracts? Is it considered bad form to get in touch with modders? Or am I just too small to even appear as a blink on their radar? I really don't know. And it puzzles.
Isn't that weird? I find
really
that really weird. Because especially games like Cyberpunk, I've sat there and I think, oh my God, I wonder if the people that made this game have sat down with this mod and looked at it and go, what were we thinking not doing this?
You'd like
Exactly.
to hope that they have at least a portion of the dev team.
Yeah.
You know, some of them. I think about it all the time. I think about it with Dark Souls. Like, I think about it with all these mods, Resident Evil,
Mm-hmm.
and I just think, are we looking at it through the eyes of gamers though? And you know, maybe this is something that sounds super cynical, but so many of these kind of game developers, the bigger ones anyway, it's a business. You know, they're more about the business than the product. And that sounds, again, super cynical to say, but like, are they interested in looking at what people are doing with the game once it's out there and it's doing numbers and it's putting money in their pocket? Kind of, I don't know. Probably some members of the dev team.
I would think, I would think the dev teams would be not.
Dev team surely,
Yeah.
like they're ground floor, passionate. They want to make games. That's their. But
Yeah.
you know, would they reach out? I think they would probably enjoy it from like our perspective of, oh, this is super cool to see. But they probably wouldn't reach out. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't. If I made a game like that, and you know, Luke, I would definitely be reaching out.
Same.
But that's me. You know, it's like, if I saw somebody
Oh,
do that,
shit, you've
it's
done
like,
this?
holy
Wow.
crap, dude, this is amazing. You know, yeah. I guess that part of me hopes. I guess that's probably what a lot of it is. There's this part of me that hopes that they have and they see what they could be doing versus what they are doing.
That's our optimistic little VR hearts. That
Yes,
are doing that.
yes, the Hopium boys.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Brian, you did 15 as well.
One extension of the gamepad question I had was GTA 5 mod is probably the only mod that gamepad decliners actually tolerate and agree upon. Is it the actual game that determines what the real or not real VR argument would be?
That's odd, as from my side I can tell you that GTA 5 is the game where I got the largest number of requests for some kind of motion controls implementation, but generally speaking I have to say that most of my audience actually prefers sitting down on the couch and relaxing with a gamepad in their lap instead of having every game turn into some sort of physical and sweaty arm flailing workout. I completely agree.
That's you said that exactly that, Ben. Like about half an hour ago.
Yeah.
These were your words exactly.
We're so aligned. I've clearly been speaking too much to Luke.
Yeah.
It's certainly much more realistic, for example, to play GTA 5 seated at a proper gaming steering wheel than it is to fake drive with your disembodied hands on an imaginary wheel that never quite responds to your inputs or in the way you'd expect. That said, motion controllers work exceptionally well for games that were designed around them, like Beat Saber, Gorn, Pistol Whip, to name a few. I just believe they don't need to be shoehorned into everything. It's actually funny if you think about it, because we already saw the exact same phenomenon trending and then failing in recent times with the Nintendo Wii. Oh my god, same thing.
Yep.
When the Wii motion controllers first came out, they seemed to be the gaming revolution that everybody had been waiting for, and many people went as far as saying they would never play another gamepad title again. But then reality turned to be quite different. Titles expressly leveraging the characteristics of the new controllers sold exceptionally well. Thinking about Wii Sports, Wii Fit Plus for the balance board and so on. But except for those, all that hype around Wii motion controllers turned into meh, never quite liked them, or Wii Motion what for the vast majority of games, and Nintendo itself doesn't seem to believe in them anymore.
Yeah.
You kind of see that on the Switch. You know, when a game has some kind of like
Joy-Con
flaily
stuff.
mechanics, because the Joy-Con still do all of that. It's more of a novelty now when they have it than anything else. Like, I don't think I've used one single game where I'm standing in front of my TV like, woo. I just don't do it.
Yeah.
I want to sit on the sofa and chill. And
Well, yeah. Then that's when, like, you know, PlayStation or Sony tried to jump on the whole Wii bandwagon with the Move controllers.
Yeah.
And then those things, they were terrible. I think we had like 2 or 3 games that used them. I think one of them was like Little Big Planet. And I didn't play Little Big Planet, but my son played it constantly. And he used those things maybe like 2 or 3 times and then just went back to gamepad. I was like, why aren't you using the Move controllers? It's like, because those things are just annoying to work with.
They're just dumb. Like, why did you buy those? They've always irked me so much. I hated that the PSVR was kind of hung on those
Oh,
as
I
the
know,
controller
I know.
option.
When they
That
did
made
that, I
me
was like,
so sad.
seriously? Those things
So sad.
sucked so bad for games.
They
That
sucked.
janky camera tracking system, and God, especially game.
It's crazy to me that the PSVR did as well as it did, like given the setup, given how many
Mhm.
cables there were,
Oh my
how
God,
bad the
yes.
controllers were,
Oh,
how much it relied on a camera that needed to be in like kind of a well-lit
Very
environment
in a
and at
perfect
exactly
position.
the right
Yeah.
height.
yeah.
Like all those factors do not add up to a successful VR unit, but the thing sold really well, and it was a
Yeah.
lot of people's first experience in VR. Someone
Yeah.
like Gamertag VR got into VR off the back of that bloody thing, so it's like it clearly did enough, but
Yeah.
when you really think about it, it's like Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
I know. I
Yeah.
remember I first put it on with that, because the first time I got it, well, the only reason I got it was because I wanted to play Resident Evil 7. I hadn't played it yet. I'd waited a year for it to come on PC VR. Well, more than that. It was clear that it wasn't going to happen. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to go get a PS4. So I went out and I bought everything for it. And I was really skeptical about it, but I put it on. I was like, really, this is a pretty legitimate headset.
It's pretty good, yeah.
And I was playing with it. I was really skeptical because I was a purist about motion controls too, because that's all I had known with VR. I was like, I don't know, gamepad, that just sounds lame. And I sat down. I was like, actually, this is working
is
really well.
Mm-hmm. Resi
Yeah.
7's still like one of the best things on PSVR,
Yeah,
and
that-
it's a shame that it has now been kind of usurped by the PC version.
Yeah.
But I remember unpacking my PSVR and sitting there and playing Resi 7 for the first time and just being blown away. Just being like, oh my God, I'm in a Resident Evil game. This is
Yeah,
incredible.
exactly.
This is
That's
everything I ever
exactly what
dreamed
it
of.
is.
It's just
Yeah.
the coolest shit, man. Yeah. That's what VR is
I mean,
about.
and it's kind of sexy, like those blue lights
Yeah,
that come out of
that
it.
looks pretty.
It's kind of like visually, it's appealing and
It's
it's very
comfy.
comfortable.
Very
I
comfortable.
really
So light.
kind of hope that the PSVR 2 has some kind of blue light or something,
Yeah.
some kind of accent on the
Yeah.
thing that just lights
Exactly.
Yeah,
up.
because the
Give it a bit
pictures
of
I've seen online, it just looks like a white face.
just looks like a kind
Halo
of a
strap.
futuristic quest, yeah.
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 Alien quest. I can read out this last bit. I
Yeah,
think
go
Luke's
ahead.
left kind of like a
Yeah.
little message
go
here
for
right
it.
at the end of the interview. So he said, so I'd like to wrap up this interview on a positive note. Playing huge open world games in VR with a gamepad can be lots of fun. I have many people telling me that just walking around and admiring the world building in those incredible works of digital art is the experience of a lifetime, and I personally feel the same. That's the main reason why I'm spending so much of my time daily creating these mods. Playing Cyberpunk 2077 in VR for me is just like being on the most wonderful Universal Studio or Disney World ride, with the difference that the experience lasts for dozens of hours instead of just a few minutes, and you can enjoy it even if you and your family can't afford a trip to Orlando. Thank you for having me and for all that you're doing for VR, guys. Keep up the good fight, Luke.
Thank you, Luke. By the way, thank you so much for doing that for us.
Like
Yeah.
that makes me
Amazing
emotional.
insights. Yeah,
That
it's
last-
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah. That worked out well too, to have that kind of an interview. I mean, it's always fun to have the modders on because you can kind of go back and forth with questions and everything. But to
Yeah.
have somebody with Ben's knowledge on here and with all the experience you have working with VR mods, that's great too. So
Once we figured out how to speak, because me and you couldn't speak at the start, then we were all right.
Yeah, well, I liked it better with you reading. I mean, I hate how anytime I'm in a game, like I'm streaming and a big thing pops up and I've got to read
I
it.
closed it.
I was like,
No.
oh God, because
I hate it.
I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's like what it is, but if there's a stigmatism, but I have trouble with lines a lot of times and words, and I've never been a good read out loud kind of guy. So,
I just refuse. If I'm playing a story-driven game on stream, I'm like, we're not learning anything today, guys. Close that down. We're not picking up any of the readables. It's not happening. It's not happening.
does anybody ever read the
me-
books in Skyrim? I never read those things. There's so many of them.
Well, once you open them, it's like considered as if you read them, right?
Oh,
You've
okay.
read these,
Yeah.
so
All
So
right, got it.
you
Open.
but for
closed.
me, English it's not my first language, so if I did stream something and then I had to read, it's like how would I pronounce it? I'm not pronouncing it properly. And of course, in the UK, people pronounce things differently than North America. Like here, they say aluminium in the States, or
It's
in Canada,
aluminum.
they say aluminum.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's where you put the pronunciation properly.
You can't win.
No, you can't. Never.
Yeah. And they say schedule instead of schedule.
Schedule, yeah, that's true.
Schedule. Yeah, I do say yeah, you're not wrong. Schedule. Yeah. Schedule.
Schedule. Yeah, that's how you say that.
Schedule.
It's
No,
crazy.
schedule.
In the 4 months since we moved here, I picked up a lot of words that I didn't before. Like we watch Gogglebox. You don't know what Gogglebox is, do you, Greg?
No.
Greg, you don't want to know what Gogglebox is.
Okay.
Anyways, it's a show
Stop
that
this conversation now.
you don't think, you just stare, but they talk, the lingo and stuff that is not used in Canada, for example.
Get this, Greg. This is actually a show. It's a show where you watch people watching telly.
Watch television.
Are you serious?
So the show is people watching TV. So you're watching people watching TV. It is beyond comprehension.
It's put
kind
a
of an
mirror in
Inception
front of the
thing.
mirror and you see this. That's what
the UK
Gogglebox
for you.
is.
We're just, it's a messed up place, man. That's what passes for entertainment here. So.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, man, I'm really glad that I'm so excited that Luke was willing to do this for us because,
Yeah.
like I said, it's hard to get a guy that doesn't want to be, put online, which, like I said, we totally respect that. But just to be able that was a huge bunch of answers, So he actually took time to sit down and think about it, and I really appreciate that. It's so awesome.
Definitely.
And we'll probably have to do that more because we're finding that a lot of modders are that breed. A lot of people don't want to be in the spotlight at all. They don't want their faces out there. They're shy about being online. So we always have this option. Okay, everybody. So that's it. Thank you very much, Ben, for joining us. Really appreciate it. I hope we'll be able to get you back on the show. We always love having you on the show. It's a great
anytime
conversation.
when my schedule allows, I will. I'll be there. I'll be there.
All right. Thank you so much to Luke Ross for taking the time to answer all of our questions. We will have more, I promise. And thank you so much for answering whenever I text you. Anyway, that's it for this episode, everybody. Make sure you hit like and subscribe and click the little bell thingy and all that fun stuff. Comment on the video. We're getting great interaction. Our last show got over 2,100 views, which I think is nuts for a 2-episode show. So that's so great engagement. We're having a lot of yes, and if you want, buy a Modcast t-shirt or a mug. I can't wait to get mine.
Or a mug.
Yeah. I don't know where it's going to be. I don't even know where I'm going to be yet. But anyway,
Still in the open.
that's right. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Take care.